to Ask Me Anything About Politics. This is the show where you can ask me anything that you like about politics, and I will do my best to give you a great answer. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. I know it can feel like trying to learn a new language. So, this is the show where you can ask all of your questions about politics, and nobody's going to judge you or roast you or make fun of you or try to get into a debate or an argument with you. Everybody is welcome here, whether you are a Republican, a Democrat, something in the middle, something on the outskirts. This is not a show for debating or fighting or harassing or bullying. I know that there's a lot of really popular shows out there where people will, Democrats and Republicans will fight each other and debate each other and call each other names and try to prove which one of them is smart and which one of them is stupid. This is not that show. This show is good faith engagement on the substance. This is actually trying to establish a shared reality, trying to bring us all back to actually agreeing on what's going on. Because if we can't actually agree on what's going on, then how can we even begin to talk about how to solve the problems if we can't even agree what the problems are? So yeah, everybody's welcome here. Republican, Democrat, something in the middle, something on the outskirts. And there's no such thing as a dumb question. If you are a political novice and you have novice-like questions, then this is the place where you can ask them, and no one's going to call you stupid or uninformed or anything like that. You can ask something more complicated. You can ask something that is more expert level. I can't guarantee that I'll be able to answer it, but if I can, I'll do my best. So yeah, any questions about politics at all, just throw them in the chat and we will get to answering them. Everybody is welcome here, whether you are a Republican, a Democrat, something in the middle, something on the outskirts. I am not here to judge you based on your political beliefs and ideology. I'm not going to call you MAGA fascists, and hopefully you won't call me a beta cuck. So we can actually have a good and productive chat about what's going on in our country and in our government and in the world, and then maybe we can all kind of agree on a plan of attack for what we can do going forward for making everything better and making people's lives easier. Because I think one of the main things that's going on, not just in politics but just in the world generally, is everybody's lives are harder except for the billionaire class, and so maybe we can do something about that. What's up, Sonia DeBoss? Good to see you again. Says, oh, I see you. Says, only reason people think Trump is king is because he replaced your jester. So that's not really a productive comment. But also, do you not see all the things that Trump is doing to try to act like a king, to try to get king-like powers? Oh, I see you. Let me know. Some dude says, do you think Tulsi Gabbard is the next one out? Oh, I've got no idea. Like, the metrics by which Trump decides who to get rid of and who to keep around is absolutely bananas to me. What's up, Mete? Hello. What's up, Eliminate All Foids? Angelo Cam says, is JFK Jr. alive? I do not believe so. Our Space asks, are you a communist? I am not a communist. I am also not a capitalist, and I'm also not a socialist. I believe in a mixed model like they have in Scandinavia. User, a whole bunch of numbers, says, he is the emperor. Who is? Elliot says, how does no kings accomplish anything? Are you really asking that question, Elliot? Are you really asking what is the point of protesting? Because if you're really asking, then I'll give you the answer. But some people just ask that question because they want to throw shade. William Tell says, women now outnumber men 18 to 34 in the workforce and college. I partially blame the Xbox. It's actually interesting, William Tell. I have heard that once women start dominating specific areas, they start to be viewed of as feminized spaces. And therefore, if you want to truly be a masculine man, you will avoid those feminized spaces. I think that's a really toxic attitude to have, first and foremost being that you should be in the workforce. Like, you should want to go to college and get a good education and get a great job, after that. But just, I remember being in college and thinking, like, God damn, if there were more women here, maybe I would have a better shot, like, I wasn't exactly a ladies' man back in the day. I dreamed of entering feminized spaces in order to, just have my pick of the litter, And so the fact that there are dudes who are choosing to avoid places where there are more women, where they could potentially have better odds, is absolutely fucking bananas to me. D. Scott and Triska, thank you so much for helping me reach my first GIF goal of the day. Ecuadorian, good to see you again. How does one throw shade if they have sunglasses on? Having sunglasses on does not affect your ability to throw shade. And in fact, I think it would be more effective because, when you're wearing sunglasses, you get less light, and so getting more shade on top of that would make you essentially blind. Thomas H says, I supported Donald Trump and completely regret that. He's completely finessed his base. I don't know what you mean by finessed, but I'm always glad to have people who no longer support Trump. Thomas H, I'm glad to hear that. Are there things that you are doing to try to undo the damage of your previous Trump support? Are there things that he did that made it so that you don't support him anymore? Let me know. Average Joe. Stream Elements is a professional shade thrower. That is some functionality of Stream Elements that I have not utilized quite yet. William Tell said it's called the stay-at-home boyfriend. I don't know what that means. Connie Sindel says, have you heard that Musk interfered with 2024 election in Georgia? Yes. He was just... It was just revealed that he was engaged in election interference. So he was mailing absentee ballots to people that were already filled in as being, a vote for Trump, which is like wildly illegal. And the fact that, the current Justice Department is not seeking charges for that is all the evidence that you need of, if they actually give a shit about obeying the law in the Trump administration. Our Space says, so how will you bring change with the billionaires? I'm not really sure what you mean by that question, Our Space, because I am not in charge, and so I don't really have the power to bring change with billionaires. Or are you saying that because I'm not a communist that I think that billionaires are good? No, I'm anti-billionaire. Solomon A says, what's your take on abortion? I'm pro-choice, but even if you're pro-life, you should still vote for Democrats because Democratic policies actually decrease abortions. Republican policies don't decrease abortions. They actually increase abortions because they increase accidental pregnancies and they keep people in poverty, so to the point where they can't afford to have the children that they are being pregnant with. Additionally, abortion bans make pregnancy a lot more dangerous for women. So if you look at states that have instituted Republican-led abortion bans, you see that they have rapidly increasing fetal and maternal mortality rates. Ooh, Our Space says, how are you anti-billionaire? Oh, so you're a socialist. You don't have to be a socialist to be anti-billionaire. Yeah, I don't think it's really productive to be dogmatic about these definitions because otherwise you just end up getting into semantic arguments about what the words mean as opposed to which policies do you advocate for, which ones do you think would be good and which ones do you think would be bad. Real Benda, happy Passover to you. Are you having a Seder or a meal? No, I do not practice any religion at all. Ryan May says, what are your thoughts on adult cabaret performers or entertainers? I know that those industries are notoriously exploitive, but I'm sure that there are some people who really want to do that and are able to make a lot of money doing that and lead very happy lives doing that. So, I would just say maybe we can have more regulations so that it's safer for the people who want to do that. BitNevo says, do you have an opinion on the online heat Piker is getting right now? Yeah, I definitely think there are things that Hassan Piker has said and done that are detrimental to the cause. I think that anybody who is making political discourse popular with young people is probably a net positive. There are probably way more things that I agree with Hassan Piker on than that I disagree with him on. I definitely think there are some things that he deserves shade for saying, like the fact that he said that if Gavin Newsom is the nominee, that he's going to vote third party or some shit. Like, I don't give a shit what state you live in. There's no excuse for not supporting the Democratic candidate in the general election, especially considering all of the things that the Republican Party has done over the past decade. Like, it's completely fucking psychotic. And people talk all the time about using their vote to punish the Democratic Party, but they never talk about using their vote to punish the Republican Party, who are guilty of fucking atrocities, and war crimes, crimes against humanity, violations of our due process, unprecedented corruption. Like, don't you think it is worth it to use your vote to punish Republican politicians, or is punishment only for Democrats? Okay, Ecuadorian says, so yesterday Pete Boy and the convicted felon are now trying to use Latin America as a shield for America, which in other terms use us for war. How do we stop this murderous administration? Ecuadorian, it's the same old shit. We just got to do the work. Although I'm not really sure what the story is there. Oh, excuse me. So I got to do a little more research on that. Noble Core says atrocities and laughing face emojis. Do you really not know the atrocities that the Trump administration is doing, Noble Core? Let's see here. Big Boy Jabba Parker says, make me laugh, comedian. No. Didsa says, would you even have voted for someone like Bloomberg? If Bloomberg was the Democratic nominee, then yes. But Noble Core says, go ahead and list them. All right. Yeah, there's human rights atrocities happening in ICE detention facilities. The murder of people off the coast of Venezuela is a war crime. And yeah, there are just two atrocities there for you right now. Red Sheepskin says, don't send your children to finish a job that politicians started. I believe you're saying don't join the military, right, Red Sheepskin? S1 Kayami says, do you acknowledge the existence of ICE is essential for the country, but reform is needed? No, I mean, CBP was doing the job of ICE before 9/11, so we could just have CBP do that, after ICE. I personally believe that the rot at ICE is so deep that there is no reforming it, but I'll definitely take reform over nothing. Triska, D. Scott, and Connie, thank you so much for helping me reach my second gift goal of the day. Willie says, do you think the U.S. should shrink the military like Clinton did? I don't know if Clinton did shrink the military, but I definitely think that the military should at least pass an audit. Akshay says, what are the percentage of those atrocities happening? I'm not really sure what you mean by that. Our Space says, you do realize that all administrations work for private corporate interests, right? No, Our Space, that is inaccurate. You could make an argument that there is some work being done for private corporate interests in every administration, but there's also an issue of scale. Like, how much is the current administration doing the work of the people versus how much are they doing the work for private corporate interests? And overwhelmingly, Republican politicians do the work of private corporate interests, and the Democratic Party does way more work for the people, does way more work for unions and workers' rights and the poor and marginalized communities. Like, Democratic administrations have raised taxes on top earners and giant corporations in every administration for the past 50 years. There's no arguing that. There's a difference between the two political parties depending on who is in charge. So Our Space, the things that I say are accurate. If you have an issue with them, you can ask a question. But if you just say no and then say that I'm full of shit, you're going to get booted, because that's not a productive way of being part of this live stream. Average Joe says, did you know the president is allowed to sanction individuals, basically cutting them off from all forms of income? They have done this to at least 2 international criminal court justices. Why not Elon, the Ellisons, etc.? What's up, Thunder Politics? Average Joe, this is the first time I'm hearing about that. I'm gonna need to look into that. Send me a message. I would love to do a little bit more research on that. Jeffrey Shelton says anarcho-communism would be great. I don't know if that's true, Jeffrey. Kevin says it's nice not being a dictatorship where 1% controls all the wealth. Oh, wait. Yeah, that is the system we're currently living in. V says, what are your opinions on Democratic Party capitalist imperialism debt trapping of Africa? I am skeptical that the Democratic Party has been the tip of the spear in fucking over the various nations in Africa. I think if anything is going on, it is the Democratic Party is doing some of it and the Republican Party is doing most of it. I would need to look into that, because this is the first time I'm hearing about this issue. Alrighty. Let's see here. Our space says you don't even know the difference between multinational corporations and American corporations. So that's not a productive comment, our space, so you're out of here. Oscar Clark says thoughts on Keir Starmer. I know that there are probably very legitimate criticisms that people in the UK can make of the way that Keir Starmer has been legislating and has been governing. I wonder if the UK, and actually I strongly suspect that the UK suffers from the same disease that we suffer here in America, where we have all of the criticisms in the world for left-wing parties, but all of the grace in the world for right-wing parties. And so I wonder if Keir Starmer was doing the exact same shit, but he was a Tory, if nobody would have a fucking problem with it. But because he's Labor, like, he can literally do nothing right. That's what happens with the Democratic Party here in America, where, you know, a paper cut gets treated like a fucking gunshot wound. Meanwhile, the Republican Party is, if we're following this analogy, decapitating people, and people are like, oh, you can just sew that head back on. That's not a big deal. Dan Blackroyd says, what do you think is the biggest barrier to class solidarity? I think it's a couple of things, Dan. There are various narratives that the billionaire class uses to separate us. This is divide and conquer, plain and simple. And so first it was race. First it was probably sex and race, and then it was sex, and then it was race, and then, you know, now it's much more of a culture war kind of thing. Are you a leftist? Are you a liberal? Are you a Republican? Are you a MAGA? Are you, whatever. And so, yeah, they will use those divisions to make it seem like we are not in this together against the billionaire class. Alrighty, let's see here. John Abbott, great to see you again, says there wouldn't be regulations for Republicans to repeal if Democrats hadn't passed them to begin with. That is 100% accurate. D, great to see you again as well. What are your preferred sources for news? Hold on a second. My live is flagged for civic and election integrity. What the fuck does that mean? Can anybody tell me what I did that made that happen? That's pretty fucking bananas. We're only 17 minutes in on the TikTok, so we're gonna go ahead and restart because obviously that is a fucking complete bullshit violation that I just got flagged for. So if you're watching on TikTok, please come right back. I'm gonna keep streaming for for Twitch and YouTube in the meantime. So come right back, TikTok. Come right back, TikTok. All right, let's see here. D, what are my preferred sources for news, both nationally and internationally? I mean, I do think that you need to have a varied media diet. And so I think some foreign sources and some local sources, some independent media and some establishment media. I like to use news aggregators like Ground News and the Reddit news feed, but I also supplement that with what I consider to be like really good journalism from, you know, outlets like Crooked Media or MSNBC or MS Now, or I like individual reporters like Chris Hayes or Brian Tyler Cohen and stuff like that. What's up, Lauren? Great to see you again. Average Joe says, I kind of mixed both with Executive Order 1423 for 2025. The U.S. officially imposed sanctions on the ICC individuals involved in investigating U.S. or Israeli nationals. Oh, so this is a Trump executive order, which may or may not have any legal basis, specifically targeting ICC officials who are involved in investigating U.S. or Israeli nationals. Like, that's fucking bananas, my guy. All right, D says, so you're flagged for having too much integrity? Yeah, probably. Let's see here. I love John Abbott being on the side of stream elements. That's so funny. All right, what else we got here? Maxie says, hey, opinion on Scottish independence. If that's what Scottish people want, then I say go for it. Mork says, what's your opinion on the Palestine-Israel war? Hold on a second. Vanity and Muzz King, thank you so much for helping me reach my third gift goal of the day. And of course, that means it is finger hearts o'clock. So yeah, my take on the Palestine-Israel war is that the governing bodies of both of those countries have been doing a really shitty job of achieving some sort of peace and stability. Now, I would say that mostly this is the fault of Israel because Israel is the more powerful of the two nations. That is not to say that Hamas and the Palestinian Authority are blameless in this. Lindsay, thank you so much for helping me reach my first finger hearts goal of the day. But again, if you are the more powerful nation with the full backing of the American government, which is the most powerful military that has ever existed in the history of the world, then it is your job to do outreach, that it is your job to not treat Palestinians like second-class citizens. It is your job to not turn Palestine into an open-air prison. Like, that is their responsibility. Now, I put a lot of the blame for this specifically on the right-wing politicians within Israel as opposed to the voters in Israel. But it is clear that if this is going to change at all, the first thing that has to change is the people in Israel are going to have to vote for better leadership. And I hope that the people in Palestine will follow suit. Okay. Ugh, excuse me. Bronzeback says, how do you feel about what we were doing in Cuba? It's barbaric. It's unconscionable. We are hurting the citizens of Cuba. We are doing collective punishment because we don't like the government of Cuba, so we've cut off their access to oil so that people, there's no electricity there. It's counterproductive because it's making the Cuban citizens angry at us than their own government, which is what, if you want there to be productive change for the people in Cuba, then that's the opposite of what you want. But additionally, now we are letting Russian oil be sold in Cuba. So not only are we going back on our own policy, but we're doing it specifically so that Russia can get more money. Like, this is one of the biggest fucking cell phones on the planet. Like, ever since this war with Iran started, we have done nothing but weaken America and strengthen our adversaries, China, Russia, Iran, etc. Like, I can't, there are no words to describe how just like, congratulations, you played yourself, the Trump administration has been. Alrighty. Sipster says, was Cuba bad before even the oil was cut off? Oh, yeah. I mean, the government in Cuba and the citizens of Cuba have been suffering for a long time. And some of that is the responsibility of American sanctions. I believe that normalization was the right way to deal with differences between the American government and the Cuban government. If we're going to stop the Cuban government from doing human rights violations against their own citizens, I think the way that you do that is with normalization treaties as opposed to sanctions. So yeah, I'm not like an expert in the history of Cuba, but that's my 25-cent take on that. Sipester says, do you think Trump will make Venezuela or Cuba part of America? He may try, but I believe he will fail. CS says, how was the No Kings protest? Did you see more or less people than the last one? I saw a lot more people than the last one, and I had a great time. My only regret was that my phone ran out of batteries because I was streaming the entire thing, and so I had to leave earlier than I wanted to. Abdul Majid says, what do you think about Palestine? I support the people that live there, but I do not support Hamas. Bone Crusher says, do you think ICE could have been used to make the country better than using it to racial kill? I mean, it's possible, but ICE has been a problem for a long time. Like, the Obama administration was talking about needing to rein in ICE because they were behaving like a rogue agency. And they basically told Obama to go kick rocks. Now, yeah, some people will argue that we can fix that through regulation. Some people argue that we just need to abolish the agency entirely, and I'm one of those people. Let's see here. Darren says, can I pay anybody's rent? I don't. You can't really trust anybody that you meet on the internet, but this guy Darren is saying he's going to pay your rent, so maybe, I don't know what he's going to ask in return. Seems pretty sus to me. Ziu Kazu says, what do you think about Podesta? I don't know enough about Podesta to comment, unfortunately. John Abbott says, I'm not saying Trump is a Russian asset. I'm just saying it would explain everything he has done. And if he isn't, I can't think of another way to explain it at all. Completely agree with that. John Abbott. Average Joe says, I heard an interesting theory that his Russian infatuation is based on his envy of Putin's wealth and authority. Seems plausible. Makes perfect sense to me. Doug says, why no Israeli boots on the ground? That's a really good question, Doug. I'm not really sure, because I know that they have started military action against Lebanon. I don't know if that is including boots on the ground. I don't know if there are no Israeli troops engaged in Iran. Yeah, I don't know. I'm curious to see if that is even the case. Winner Chicken Dinner says, "Do you like Trump, bro?" No, I do not. Bronzeback says, "End the war in one day." LMAO. Yeah, for real, right? The Official Human says, "Trying to be as non-biased as possible. Could you explain both viewpoints of Israel-Palestine?" Sure. The viewpoint of Israel is basically that all of the nations surrounding them seem to hate them and want to murder everybody in there. And so they are justified in doing whatever they can to try to keep their citizens safe. The other side of the coin would be Palestine, where they're like, yeah, we hate you because you have been killing our people and annexing our territory and stuff like that. So obviously we're going to hate you back. My personal belief is that because Israel is the more powerful nation by a lot, that they are the ones that are responsible for moving towards peace, as opposed to they're using too much stick and not enough carrot, you know? Hyan says, should Iran have the right to tax ships? That question's a little over my head, Hyan, so sorry about that. At the moment, what we're living in right now is a war environment where might makes right, where Iran is the military power that is able to seize control, to seize control of the Strait of Hormuz, and so by that logic, they are able to do whatever they want with it, including charging boats to go through it. If you're from a nation that they don't like. Clurder says, best American president of all time in your opinion? Oh, I don't know. Tito says, I can tell where you're from because of your last name. No, you can't. Go ahead and guess, Tito. V says, I prefer Russia to America because they support Cuba in parts and do not debt trap Africa. I mean, the sins of Russia are arguably worse than the sins of America, V. So I would take a second look at that if I were you. Bronzeback says, do you think this is actually a holy war? I don't. And it should concern everybody in America and abroad that the people that are currently in charge of the military are saying that this is a holy war and that we're doing this to hasten the rapture. Like, that's fucking psychotic, aside from being a violation of the separation of church and state. Like, that's some real fucking Christian extremism shit that has no place in a position of power. Ace Bag, hello, apprentice of the propagandistic Yowie. What a weird thing to say. I don't even know what that means. Average Joe says, have you heard of a military tactic called mowing the grass? Yes, but I don't remember what it is, Average Joe. Hyan says, what's your opinion on Syria? I'm not an expert in Syria. If I'm remembering correctly, Syria overthrew their dictatorial leader, Assad, and the person who is currently in charge of Syria used to be in ISIS or the Taliban or one of those terrorist organizations, but that they are pledging to not be a restrictive theocracy government going forward. I have no updates on how they are maintaining that promise, but I will say that if getting rid of Assad was a really good thing, and that when you are doing regime change, Syria is the way it should happen, where it happens from within the country as opposed to us going into the country and telling people who their leaders are allowed to be. Okay, let's see here. Will Madden says, what do you suggest the solution is to Iran killing thousands of their own citizens? So that's a really good question, Will Madden. And here's the thing. It is a complicated issue that requires nuance, intelligence, and experts. So whatever the right answer is, it is 100% not what the Trump administration is doing. Like, this is one of the most irresponsible, poorly planned, poorly thought out, wars that America has ever been involved in. And that really is saying something, because we kind of cornered the market on irresponsible, poorly planned wars. D. Scott, Triska, Muzz King, and Vanity, thank you so much for helping me reach my second Finger Hearts goal of the day. Excuse me. Oh, my goodness. I apologize. I hope nobody's being offended by my my brusque gaseous exertions over here. So yeah, how do we support the citizens of Iran without boots on the ground, bombing their infrastructure, bombing their school children, shit like that? Um, I think potentially training, like maybe we can send people over there who are really good at organizing insurgent movements. There was, before Trump started this extremely irresponsible and poorly planned war with Iran, there was an organic grassroots movement to move away from the theocracy that was spanning multiple demographics. Like usually when people are upset about the theocracy, it usually is coming just like from like the young, more progressive city center areas and demographics. But this was like, farmers in rural areas and young college students as well. I think that all we have done is turned more people towards the theocracy and turned the theocracy more extreme in this behavior. But yeah, there's smart things that we could do to try to help citizens. That is not another stupid regime change war. All right, Super Mario, happy Wednesday to you. Hyan says, do you think the smartest country in the middle is Turkey right now, and do you think it's a dictatorship? That's a little over my head. I don't know anything. I know almost nothing about the government of Turkey. Will Madden says, they have been fighting to change the regime in Iran for over 40 years. I think that's like half true, Will Madden. Like, it's complicated. There are a lot of different people in Iran who want a lot of different things. Lindsay says, did you eat lunch before the stream? No, but I did go swimming this morning, and then I had a protein shake afterwards. You asked pancake or waffles? I like waffles, I like the texture better. Romanian Thunder says, what do you think about the far right? I'm against it. Okay, Fox Hatfields. I don't know if it's politics, but I've seen too many companies get away with faulty equipment with no punishment. Regulation could really do a thing or two about that, Fox Hatfield. Maybe we should have some regulations against companies and the enshittification of everything. Gov says, do you think socialism and communism could ever work? It has worked, and it is currently working. The thing that people say when they say we've never seen socialism or communism work is they're talking about a totalitarian socialism or communist regime. Or they're talking about countries that call themselves socialist or communist, but that actually are not socialist or communist. Like Russia's not really communist, and Venezuela isn't really socialist. But where are we seeing socialism work? We're seeing socialism work here in America with paved roads and public schools and fire departments and the military. Where are we seeing communism work? We're seeing it in every employee-owned company and company that engages in profit sharing. That is communism at work. In successful union movements, that is communism working. Jeff Johnson says libertarians are the only capitalists in America. I don't know if that's accurate. Bitnevo says conservatives bashed globalism for decades, but it seems like now they're attempting it with fascism. Yeah, I think an argument could be made for that. Philosophical Peacock says, sorry, French toast is the correct breakfast food. I do enjoy me some French toast. I'm not mad at that. Mike Green says, do you find your appetite being affected with all this bullshit? Sometimes, 100%. Owen says, Iran war is pro-Israel, not pro-America. An argument could be made, Owen. I definitely agree with it. It is not pro-America. Jeff Johnson says, open borders is pro-capitalism. Sure. I mean, what are we talking about here? We're talking about, are libertarians the only ones that can actually call themselves capitalists? Because they're the only ones that actually believe in a regulation-free market? Sure. But I believe that there are a lot of people on the American right who would claim that they are capitalists and who believe in free markets when it means that giant corporations don't have to be taxed or don't have to be regulated and shit like that. John Rambo says, how do you feel about the U.S. government attempting to cancel our freedom of speech? I'm against it, John Rambo. That's why I vote for Democrats. Average Joe says, does it sound hypocritical to you when someone justifies the U.S. and Israel killing civilians because the offending country is accused of killing civilians? Average Joe, I do think that some people are hypocritical in that, but I also think some of it is a little misguided. It's a little bit like children, like one child hits the other child, and that child retaliates, and that child retaliates, and that child retaliates, to the point where nobody can remember which child did the first hit, but every child feels justified in hitting because they were just hit. So yeah, that makes a lot more sense to me, where they're like, we're punishing Iran by bombing them, ignoring the facts of that not actually helping the situation and us facilitating the death of other civilians, But I would say that I agree with that statement like 95%. Ecuadorian says Trump will be the reason we have another lockdown because of how he treated COVID last time. If anything else happens and he just ignores it, we are all screwed. I find that to be pretty accurate, Ecuadorian. My concern is that we might not get that information because the Trump administration has been so eager to try to exercise governmental control over the media. Maybe they will be successful in keeping news organizations from being able to report on it. Maybe they'll be successful in keeping the Department of Health from reporting on it. Maybe they will be successful in silencing the WHO and the CDC. Like, fingers crossed, OS Photography says, how much more money do we owe Israel? I don't think we do owe Israel. Onions and Garlic says, look into measles. Yes, look into measles, exactly. Willie says, remember when Trump recommended injecting bleach to kill COVID-19 cells? There are certain times when people criticize Trump for things that he said that I actually think are a little hyperbolic and unfair. Like, I have watched that news clip of him talking about like getting the light into the body and bleach killing COVID and stuff like that. I don't think that he was saying to people that they should inject bleach into their veins. That's my take on it. You can disagree with me if you like, but I think that there are other criticisms you can make of Trump that are impossible to contest, like the fact that he's selling political pardons, like the fact that he is engaged in unprecedented corruption through his cryptocurrency, the fact that there's atrocities happening at ICE and CBP facilities, the fact that the war in Iran is illegal, irresponsible, and dangerous, the fact that murdering people off the coast of Venezuela is a war crime. Like, those seem to me like slam dunks where, Trump suggesting that people injecting bleach to me seems a little bit more like a bank shot. Mike Green says, I'm just going to say, unless he's absolutely clear, that his supporters might inject. Possibly. I don't know if I've heard any stories of that happening, though. Owen says, Trump caught slight resistance from the left with ICE and completely stopped deportations. That is not accurate, Owen. ICE and CBP are still doing illegal and terrible shit. Mama Deb says, can you explain what happened between the U.S. and Iran prior to the hostage crisis? I cannot, Mama Debs. That is a little over my head. Hey, Chelsea says, I don't like to support Trump, but he didn't say we should inject bleach. Hey, Chelsea, I completely agree with you there. If somebody wants to put the transcript of like what he said exactly that people think equals people should drink bleach or inject bleach, put it in the chat and we'll see. Because I remember that clip and I remember thinking like it's a little irresponsible the way that you phrased it, but I don't think that what he said equals inject bleach into you. Okay, hey, Chelsea said he said we should inject his warp speed though. That is true. OS Photography says, why do we pay Israel billions for bad intel? Iraq to Syria to Iran. Are we fighting for Israel? So OS Photography, you are correct in saying that for some reason we have been giving a lot of money and weapons to Israel. There are a bunch of different motivations for politicians to be doing that. I don't think that we should be doing that. I think it's a long since past the time that we should have stopped doing that. Okay, Theo says, why do people twist themselves into pretzels trying to make excuses for him? I think there's some cognitive dissonance there where, the sunk cost fallacy of devoting so much of your life to supporting somebody makes you feel like you have to defend every decision that they make. Otherwise, it will become clear that you were not maybe doing the smartest thing in supporting him. I think other people, they get paid by supporting Donald Trump. So, they're just trying to keep that check in the mail. Yeah, and some politicians want to keep their jobs, and that's the reason why they do it. There's a whole bunch. Theo says, you don't have to support every decision being an individual, be your own person. Agree with that. Tony Baker says, what's one thing that Joe Biden did that was bad during his term? Oh, this is the easiest question I've ever answered in my entire life. Continuing to send money and weapons to Israel after it was found out that they were guilty of war crimes. During the Biden administration, whether or not Israel was perpetuating genocide was still an open question. Some people were looking at the facts of the matter and saying this is unquestionably that, but there were independent organizations that were still on the fence about it. But whether or not he was a war criminal, Netanyahu was a war criminal, was undisputed. And yet, we were still pledging fealty to Israel. We were still sending them money and weapons. Like the Biden administration needed to do 1,000 times more to rein in the Netanyahu government after October 7th. Alrighty. Comrade Shrimp says, are you an actual leftist or a liberal? I consider myself a leftist. I'm sure that some leftists would say that I am a liberal, disguising themselves as a leftist. I call myself a progressive Democrat. All the politicians that I support are more left-wing Democrats like AOC and Mamdani and Bernie Sanders and shit like that. But where people on the left might get mad at me is that I believe that when the general election comes down, we need to vote for Democrats up and down the ballot, regardless if they are the centrist, corporatist kind, because it is better to have a shitty milquetoast Democrat in that seat than any Republican. Okay, let's see here. Average Joe says, plus a lot of people are just afraid of having to deal with the shame of admitting they were wrong, not specific to politics, to be honest. See you later, Ecuadorian. Great to see you again. Nate Harrison says, Orange Man bad. LMFAO, the host is crazy. Have I said anything that you think is inaccurate, Nate Harrison? Joe says, Berenstein, LOL. Seems like you're being anti-Semitic, Joe. Would you like to clarify? Oceanaholic says, do you think genocide in Lebanon is next? I think so. I don't know what the military logistics are of the incursion between Israel and Lebanon right now, but if Netanyahu can, he will. Like, that's his entire modus operandi. Like, he wants to be the most far-right, extreme prime minister that Israel's ever had, and he's succeeding, you know. Wesley Stee says, Bernie wasn't ignored. 12 years was a big mistake. I don't know what that means. Joe says, yes, I am being anti-Semitic. All right, cool. Well, you can leave then. OS Photography says, do you think politicians and government officials should be allowed to hold dual citizenship? I am open to an argument that there is value in politicians having dual citizenship, but if you asked me to argue that point, I would not be able to. Like, I don't see the value of it. I can see why you would want a politician to not have dual citizenship. Like, you want them to firmly have both of their feet in the country that they are governing, right? Like, you want them to be pot committed. Like, you want, we're all in this together, right, guy? Then how come you have half of your foot in Canada or Italy or wherever you have dual citizenship with, you know? The only argument that I could think of for allowing politicians to retain dual citizenship is if they have some sort of familial connection to that country. You know, like I have family that lives in Italy, and you know, my grandma came from Italy to America, so I could technically apply for Italian citizenship, and it's a lengthy process. And if I were to do that, then I would probably spend a lot more time over there and learning the language and making friends and probably visiting family and stuff like that. And then if I got into government, it might be a big ask to tell me to get rid of that. But, you know, like I said, I think that the argument's much stronger for making it so that politicians are not dual citizens than allowing them to be dual citizens. Fred says, I'm studying A-level amidst the start of World War III fun times. It can feel so fucking crazy just like to do regular shit when this is happening, you know? Like, I'll do stand-up shows sometimes where the comedians before me are like talking about dating or talking about the grocery store and shit like that, and I'm like, wait. What? No, we need to talk about this, right? We need to talk about this. What's going on? Alrighty, let's see here. John Abbott says, starting at about 25 seconds, and then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost cleaning? Yeah. So again, that's I read that as being an irresponsible comment, but not as saying that people should. but instead saying, if only there was a way, is there a way is literally the comment. We can do something like that by injection inside. Mika says, what's the best political ideology? Progressive Democrats. True. Czechoslovakia says, what do you think about the Czech government? I know almost nothing about it. Onions and Garlic says, rich people privilege is feeling normal during crazy times. Which review is feeling normal during crazy times? Oh, yeah. Yeah, 100% Onions, Garlic. And then just like the unbelievable like entitlement when the flood of inconvenience reaches them. Like, imagine the people that paid for like Clear, people who are rich enough to do like first class travel, but not rich enough to do private, and then being like stuck in extremely long lines at the TSA and just being like, what the fuck is going on? This is unconscionable. Meanwhile, there's like a fucking line for general admission at the fucking, at the fucking gate down the fucking block, Mika says, Progressive Democrats of the USA? I think so. Theo says, that's an insane suggestion to make as President of the United States. Again, I don't agree, but I'm not going to die on this hill. Max W says, is all of Congress evil? No. And in fact, I think that believing or telling people that all of Congress is evil is doing evil work. Because not only are you glossing over the fact that there are good people in politics trying to do good work, but you're making it seem like anything bad that a politician in Congress does is fine because like everybody does it, Which, again, I do not agree with at all. Theo says, I understand Donald Trump made the suggestion, but not the president of the United States. Again, I'll agree that it's irresponsible. I don't think he was telling people to inject bleach into their veins. Okay. CS says price of Clear needs to be tripled. Maybe, sis? I don't know. Rin says, should Palantir stop extreme surveillance? Yes. And the American government should stop enabling it. We should not allow that to happen. All right. Where are we at now? 45 minutes. All right. Things are pretty chill. So far. Daniel says, are you left or right? I am left. Crucifix says, best way to learn and get into politics as a teen. Really good question. So first of all, recognize that there is good, fair, objective information out there, but right-wing media is not that. There is no left-wing equivalent to Fox News or OAN or Breitbart or the Daily Wire. So just remember that as you are parsing through all of this like political nonsense. I would say try to find a news roundup podcast, something that gives you a little bit of everything that was going on, and start listening to that, and then maybe you can kind of like graduate to, longer form, maybe like reading articles, stuff like that. All right. Above Average American says CNN, ABC, CBS. Yeah, none of those are the left's version of Fox News. I think that's what you're saying, right? Above Average American. Bo Smith says, do you support Trump? No, I do not. Josh says, yo, can I join and we have a debate? I don't believe in debates, Josh. So I am not going to do that. Instead of us talking about politics where you're trying to win over me or whatever, why can't we just like actually engage on the substance and then try? Maybe we can have a shared understanding of what's going on. Maybe if you and I have different policy beliefs, we can have some kind of like agreement on what a good compromise would be. Mika says, what do you think about meritocratic elected monarchism? I'm going to say, without having done a ton of research into it, I'm against it. Eddie M says, they push left-wing propaganda every day. That is inaccurate, Eddie M. That is not true even a little bit. CS says, all mainstream media is right, center-right, and center. I generally agree with that, CS. Susie says, if Dems win the midterms, we'll be able to stop this administration. There are certain things we'll be able to do, Susie, but we won't be able to stop everything. It will be a massive step forward in not only starting investigations, potentially seeing accountability for certain judges or people within Trump's administration. We'll be able to stop them from confirming any judges. If we take back the Senate, we'll be able to stop them from passing any other bills. Even reconciliation bills will not be able to get passed without compromising with the Democratic Party. It will be a massive step forward, but unfortunately there are 1,000 other step forwards that we need to take in order to undo all of the damage of the Trump administration. Okay, Mike Green says Democrats aren't going around pushing propaganda. They're just working for the people. I think that's generally accurate. Sea Duck says, do you think that the Philippines economy is fucked because of the war in Iran? I know almost nothing about the economy in the Philippines. Josh says, so we going to have that talk? Depends. What do you want to talk about, Josh? Mika says, is a system in which a leader is chosen by merits, but who chooses the merits? Mika, hypothetically, what we have right now is supposed to be a meritocracy, but it obviously doesn't work that way. Kanye Lover says, would you say it's extreme to call Trump 1930s Germany? I do not think that is extreme at all. I think that the similarities are way more than the differences. And thank you to D. Scott, Bronzeback, Triska, and Vanity for helping me reach my final finger hearts goal of the day. That means that we've moved on to High Bears. And that means that for the first time in a long time, we are in monologue territory. If we successfully complete 3 High Bear goals, then I will do the Karis Nemec monologue from Andor Season 1. Okay, Moro FX says, what do you think about Dutch politics? I know absolutely nothing about it. CS says, do you watch any political TikTok lives? I don't, which part of the reason why it took me a long time to start doing lives is because I didn't understand the appeal of it, but clearly people like it because, I do this 5 days a week and people keep coming back. But yeah, there are a lot of times that there is art that I enjoy doing that I don't enjoy watching. I did comedic improv for a long time, and I don't love seeing comedic improv shows, but I love doing them. Right, what we got going on here? Any other good comments to get into at the moment? All right, well, things have kind of slowed down a little bit comment-wise, so tell you what, Josh, maybe I will let you up. Let's see here. Alex says, which UK party do you think is probably best? Don't you dare say the Greens. I mean, I would say it's either the Greens or Labour. Which one do you like, Alex? Michael says, why do people care so much about the Constitution? Really good question, Michael. So there is a lot of hyperbolic lionization of both the Constitution and our founding fathers. Some of that is merited. Like, some of what they did was like really incredible considering when they were alive, like the system that they kind of put together. Like, it's a little bit like how we were able to go to the moon using only technology that existed in, what was it, 69 that we went to the moon? And that's fucking unbelievable, So yeah, there were some great things. There were some truly revolutionary things that happened in the 1700s regarding the establishment of America. But it is also true that we have one of the oldest constitutions in civilized nations, and that I think we are sorely in need of an update. CS says, how do you know so much about UK politics? I don't know so much about UK politics. Okay. Alex says, liberal Democrats or maybe the conservatives. Yeah, I don't find any value in right-wing political organizations, Alex. So I think you're throwing your vote away if you're voting for the Tories or if you're voting for Reform. I would definitely give my vote to a left-wing party if I lived in the UK. If I was a UK citizen who could vote. All right, Amber Human says, what do you know about Latvian politics? Almost nothing. You know what I'm going to say? I'm going to say I know zero. Absolutely nothing about Latvian politics. Lero Q says, what do you think about the Euro Federalists? I don't know who they are. Michael says, do you think it's good or bad that it's so difficult to make legislative change in the USA? I didn't know that Liberal Democrats was a party in the UK. That's interesting. Yeah, I would still go Labour or the Greens. Yeah, it's a really interesting question, Michael, because there are certain things about stagnation in American government that has saved America from really terrible legislation. Like the filibuster is saving America from, ironically, the Save America Act, which is this like massive voter suppression bill. There are a lot of really shitty things that the Trump administration would have loved to have done in the first term and would love to do right now that are being stopped because we have things like the filibuster that are grinding any kind of progress to a halt. Now, if we were able to avoid electing psychotic fascists, then yeah, we should get away with the filibuster and, actually be able to pass bills. The perfect scenario would be one where the party that was in charge would be able to enact their legislative agenda, but that they wouldn't be able to go so far that we would no longer have the right to vote or freedom of speech and shit like that. So yeah, I'm in favor of getting rid of the filibuster, just not right now. Like show me a non-psychotic Republican president and I'll get rid of the filibuster for them. I just haven't seen one in a really, really long time. Okay, Connie Sindel says, have you heard that the bullet doesn't match the rifle in Kirk's murder? I have not heard that. There is a lot of misinformation out there concerning Charlie Kirk's murder, so I would be extremely skeptical about any information that I hear about it. King Boar AC says, what side are you on? I am a progressive Democrat, so I'm on the side of the people. I'm against the billionaire class, and I am against the Republican Party politicians who are working in league with them. Crucifix says, how long do you think the war in Iran will last? It depends on how you define the end of the war. I think it is possible, for example, that Trump decides he doesn't like the way that the war looks in the headlines or doesn't like what it's doing to the stock market. And so he will kind of like declare the war over. But that doesn't mean that Iran is going to, go back to the relationship that they had with America before the war. It doesn't mean that they're going to give up control of the Strait of Hormuz. It doesn't mean that Israel isn't going to continue fighting in the Middle East and we're not going to be supporting them. It doesn't mean that Iran is going to start striking, is not going to continue doing military strikes on American allies in the region, like Israel, like the Qataris, like the Saudis, like the Emirates, stuff like that. So yeah, it's possible that the America side of the war ends, but the enemy has a say in that as well. So my personal belief is that this was so poorly executed and so poorly planned that we're looking at a quagmire that will potentially go on for years. Okay, Demigod says, what office are you running for? I am not running for office. Average Joe says, do you find it suspicious that the age verification laws are being supported by tech CEOs? I do find it suspicious. There are people who are advocating for ways to make the internet safer for children, but there are people who want that and also think that age verification laws are bad. And so I think there's probably a better policy in there. Okay, Rapscallion says they've been hitting American targets and American base in Iran is still American. I don't think that we had any bases in Iran. I think that you have to have like a good relationship with a nation for them to allow you to set up a base there. Sebastian says, how do you feel about indigenous armed resistance to white settlers in America during the foundation? I mean, that's not really my area of expertise. Oh, wait, excuse me. I think if you're looking at this like in the theoretical perspective, if you are an indigenous population that is being, it is the victim of atrocities of an invading army the way that the white people were for the Native Americans, then yeah, it is your right to defend yourself. But unfortunately, if your military technology is not equal, then what's going to happen to you is what happened to the Native Americans. Kim Buckman, Muzz King, Triska, and Connie, thank you so much for helping me reach my first high bear goal of the day. And it has just occurred to me that maybe you guys aren't giving me high bears because you don't want me to do the monologue, in which case I'm fine not doing the monologue. The monologue is supposed to be a fun thing for you guys, but if nobody wants it, then I won't do it. Okay, what's up, Lady Lisa? Sebastian says, then why don't you support Hamas in Palestine? Because I do not believe in collective punishment. I do not believe that Native Americans should have murdered innocent civilians during the founding of America and during the incursion of white settlers into America. The same way that I don't think that Hamas should be doing murders and rapes on innocent civilians in Israel. Sebastian, we've been over this, my guy. I'm not going to agree with you on this. There's no way for you to like jujitsu your way through a logical fallacy to get me to say that Hamas is not guilty of war crimes. Okay, Sebastian says necessary evil if I genocide. No. There's collective punishment is a war crime. End of story. Okay, Karate Chop says poop shoot it is. What the hell does that mean? Okay, scrolling up. Hey, Heathen says, why are we blockading Cuba? Are you still here, Heathen? Let me know. I'll happily answer that question. Daniel Smith says, is Israel doing collection and punishment on Palestine? They are, Daniel Smith. In fact, I believe what they're doing is worse. I believe that it is officially a genocide, but I don't believe that you fight a genocide by doing war crimes. Sam says, why has reform gained popularity in the UK? The same reason why right-wing extremism has been popping up and becoming more popular everywhere, which is right-wing billionaire-funded propaganda. So the billionaire class does better when right-wing authoritarian governments are in charge. So they are doing a sort of like global propaganda campaign to prop up right-wing authoritarian governments. And the through line for most of this is blaming problems on immigrants that were actually caused by the billionaire class. So reform is like aggressively anti-immigrant, and the way that they are justifying that is by saying that things would be better if there weren't immigrants, and the problems that would go away are coincidentally the problems that the billionaire class is solving. You see this here in America, where supposedly immigrants are the reason why you can't afford houses, but ICE and CBP are illegally detaining and torturing, I don't know how many thousands, tens of thousands of brown people, and cost of living keeps on going up. Doesn't seem like it's working, right? Okay, Little Red Husky says, what's this? This is Ask Me Anything About Politics. My name is Jared, and I answer questions about politics. Or if you're asking me what the emoji is, it looks like it's a bunch of ghosts. A bunch of really adorable little ghosts. Okay. Alex says, who do you vote for? Democrats up and down the ballots. Okay. Scrolling down. All right, everybody, I'm going to get out of here. If you want to support the show financially, you can, but you don't have to. I know that we are all struggling with the rapidly escalating cost of living crisis, but if you have the dollars and you want to give them to me because you like what I do here and you want to support it, then there are mechanisms for you to do that. You can send gifts on TikTok. You can send bits on Twitch. You can be a super fan on TikTok. You can be a subscriber on Twitch. And if you have Amazon Prime, you can subscribe to my Twitch for free. Costs you $0. Helps me out a ton. You can also join my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Daniel Smith asks, has ICE deported enough people? Really good question, Daniel. So I am unsure of exactly how many people ICE has deported and / or detained. They are not being very transparent with that. There is a lot of shit with how ICE and CBP are operating that is neglecting oversight and making it impossible to keep track of certain people who are being detained and deported. A lot of the stuff is happening illegally, and a lot of it is barbaric and unconscionable. So yeah, if you look at certain factors, like the fact that immigrant communities pay more in taxes than they take out in services, the fact that immigrant communities commit crimes at lower rates than citizen communities, it becomes clear that immigrants are a net positive on this country, especially as we're going through a period of birth decline. So has ICE deported enough people? I think they've deported too many people. I think they've detained way too many people. They should stop. They're doing more harm than good. Mike says, I want to talk about the SAFE Act. What would you like to talk about it? I mean, do you believe, as I do, Mike, that it is a voter suppression bill? Narrow says, do you feel like you're appropriately educated on the sheer military genius of Napoleon? I am not, Narrow. Sarawat says, "What you think Trump is a gay?" I don't know if he is or not. I don't know what he is, if he is or not. Mike says that you requested. Well, what are you gonna say when you come on, Mike? You don't just get to come on and say whatever you like. This is my live stream, you know. Kim Buckman says, "What are your thoughts on the Supreme Court and the 14th Amendment?" Let me see here. Yeah, no, you have to tell me more specific, Mike. I'm just gonna let you on. I believe that the Supreme Court, in hearing the birthright citizenship case, has proven that they are not operating in good faith. They have proven that they don't really give a shit about the law or the Constitution. They are just going to do whatever the fuck they want. And what they want is to enable certain things within the Republican Party platform and whatever Trump wants. Things that will help Trump, shit like that. Mike says, right says it just makes people show ID to vote. Left says voter suppression. So what is it? Do you have a take on what it is, Mike? Or would you like me to tell you what all is in it? Divine says, is the U.S. economy still the dominant global force, or are we seeing a real shift in power? We are seeing a real shift in power, Divine, and it is due mostly entirely to the Trump administration basically ceding economic superiority to the Chinese. Like, Xi Jinping could not have planned a better American government for taking over the globe. Okay. All right, Mike, let's get into it, my guy. Oh, wait, do we hate Mike? Integrity? What's going on? Integrity says, my name is Mike, and I'm going to straw man both sides and act like I'm smarter. Where is this coming from? Is Mike like a regular person who interrupts live streams in bad ways? Let me know. Integrity. Yeah, where'd that comment come from then? Or are you saying your name is Mike as well? Mia says, no, he's asked some good questions. All right, yeah, we'll fucking let Mike on. Hold on a second. I think I turned my speakers off. I gotta turn them back on real quick. Hold, Mike. Hold. All right, Mike, you're on.
Hey, what's up?
What's going on, buddy? How can I help you?
So, let's talk about the SAVE Act, because I just hear the same talking points from both sides. Right says you show an ID to vote. That makes sense to me. Left says voter suppression. Where's that coming from? What's the truth? What does it say?
Absolutely. All right, so let's start with, what is the problem that the SAVE Act is trying to solve? Like, why do you think that the Republican Party wants there to be voter ID now, where there hasn't been voter ID in the past?
So illegals can't vote.
Okay. Do you think that that's happening a lot?
I don't know.
So, do you know what the Heritage Foundation is?
Heard of it.
Do you know if it's like a right-wing organization or a left-wing organization?
No, not really.
So it is a right-wing organization, and they're proudly right-wing. Like, I'm not saying that they are, and they're saying that they're centrist. Like, they will tell you that they're a right-wing organization. They have done their own independent study into this, and they have discovered that the number of undocumented illegal immigrants, whatever phrase you want to use, that have voted in elections illegally over the past 10 years, how many do you think it is? Just guess.
Over the past 10 years?
Yeah.
Total votes?
Yeah.
500,000.
So the Heritage Foundation found that it's 50. Like 50 total. Like not 50,000. Like 50 total over 10 years. And that's not people trying to steal the election. That's people who thought that they were allowed to vote because they were like green card holders or something.
Okay. Well, sorry, am I coming through okay? I saw someone in the comments said my audio wasn't good.
Let's see here. Maybe I can You're definitely as loud as you can be for my
Oh, I'm
microphone.
sorry.
But let's see here. I don't know if the noise on. Oh, it's the noise on the phone. Yeah, some of the there's like feedback on your phone a little bit.
Okay, I mean you can drop me if it's bothering
No,
anyone, but
no.
yeah,
I'm
I mean,
interested in hearing what you got
so
to say, my guy.
I guess like let's assume that it's true and there has only been 50 times ever. I mean, that seems questionable to me because like how exactly do you really know that if
Mm-hmm,
people
mm-hmm.
don't show the ID to vote? So, but let's just say it is 50. I kind of think, regardless, I don't understand why just having to show an ID is voter suppression. Like when I
Excellent.
go and do anything, I go and show my ID. So I just don't see the big deal with that. Even if the number was zero, I
Mm-hmm.
kind of would support that regardless, even if there was no illegals.
Okay, that's totally fair, man. That's totally fair. The first point that I like to make, though, about the Save America Act is that it is claiming to solve a problem that basically does not exist. So that's the first part, all right? Now, what is the issue with forcing somebody to show ID before they vote? The first issue is the first point that I made is that it's unnecessary, where voter fraud happens so infrequently that it's not necessary. We have a lot of data on voters, like we follow them through their social security number, so we're able to see who is a legal voter and who is not a legal voter. We can match that to like birth records and things like that. But the issue is, how has the Republican Party been using voter ID laws? The first issue is that IDs are not free. And I don't know where you live, how much IDs cost. It's not free. And, some people, they have a little bit of a hard time imagining a life where you cannot afford the $20, $50, $80, however much it would cost to get a driver's license. But those people very much exist. And there's also a time cost to it as well, where if you're somebody who is struggling to survive and you've got 3 jobs and you're working 80 hours a week, like, it is not a small thing to tell somebody they have to take time out of their day to go and get that ID and then also spend that money that they desperately need. Additionally, there have been times, there are recorded examples of this happening, where in states where there are voter ID laws, the Republicans who are in charge of the state government will shut down DMVs in Democratic areas so that Democrats have a harder time getting IDs, so that it makes it harder for them to vote. So are you following me on all this so far?
Yeah, I'm trying to keep up. I think you made a few points there.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't necessarily buy into that argument. I mean, you need that to drive.
Mm-hmm.
You need that to do so many things that pretty much everyone has to do. So are there some people who don't have an ID and are in a bad situation? Okay, sure. But I mean, right and left hate each other so much. I don't see why we couldn't compromise despite the underlying reasons. Why don't we just compromise that you have to use your ID to vote? I think that's kind of where a lot of people are at. And I mean, I don't know. I guess we'd have to look at the data, but I just don't know if that's true that there's all these people who don't have IDs.
They have done studies on this. And do you know how many people would basically not be able to vote if the Save America Act were passed?
How many?
Do you want to guess the number like we did before?
So these are like registered voters who have voted before that don't have IDs?
Yeah.
500,000. I don't know.
20 million.
Oh, I don't know if I buy that at all. I mean, I'll read into it, so I'll give you that for now.
You can send me a DM and I will send you articles to confirm everything that I'm telling you here, my guy.
Yeah, that sounds good. And, I'll head out now. I'll let you get back to your live. But, kind of just my thoughts on it. I think that, it would kind of be an easy compromise to say you have to have an ID to vote. I think you have to have an ID to do so many things, including drive.
Mike, hold on a second, Mike. Where's the compromise, though? Like, the compromise, there needs to be something for the Democratic position if the Republican position is you need an ID to vote? Where's the compromise
at? Well, I think the compromise, you were saying earlier that Republicans are shutting down DMVs or, kind of playing dirty to sway the votes. Well, why don't we make it, absolutely illegal to do that? We really come down hard on tampering with DMVs or tampering
what about making
in that way. And in exchange, people have to show their IDs.
What about making the IDs free?
I would love that as well. That sounds like an excellent
idea. Okay, so free and easy to get. Like, you don't have to go stand online at the DMV for 5 hours in order to get your ID. That is 100% a compromise that I believe the Democratic Party would be behind. I think that it is. What's the word I'm looking for? I believe it is illuminating that the Republican Party is not willing to make those compromises. Because, again, I think that the intention is to suppress the vote. And there's one more thing that I want to put in your noodle real quick, Mike, which is that if we are telling people they have to go get a government ID before they can vote, we are also telling people that they have to ask the government to send them something. And, I don't think the Trump administration is above just not sending them to people that he doesn't want to vote. Like, could you imagine everybody that lives in New York City just like they weren't able to get their IDs in time before the election, or people that live in Los Angeles or Chicago or Atlanta just like not getting their IDs before the election? Could you imagine this Trump administration doing something really shady like that?
Yeah, I could absolutely imagine that. To be honest with you, I think almost all of these politicians really play dirty, and none of the American people like it. And I think, in my head, I'm not a politician, but, I think at a certain point we have to get past this right versus left a little bit and encourage our politicians to just be a little smart and make compromises. And if we say it's free to get an ID and you have to show an ID to vote, I think that's a step in the right direction for everybody.
But don't you think it's weird
on that point? But yeah, I don't doubt that could happen at all.
Don't you think that it's weird that the Republicans haven't offered that as a compromise? It almost seems like they want to use it to suppress the vote if they're not offering that compromise.
But has that been requested as a compromise by the other side, though?
You know what? I'll check on that for you. I'm pretty sure it has, because this is like the issue, right? Is the fact that it costs money, and the fact that it's hard to get, and the fact that this Trump administration could use it as a voter suppression tool. Now,
yeah, I'll check on that too. But and if that's the case, where they have proposed that, and Trump's administration and the Republicans have said no, we're not willing to do that, then I think that's a fault on them. So I don't know. I'm just kind of over the everybody hating each other, right, left. Like, guys, we're all actually pretty normal and similar. Let's get our politicians to do something for us.
Mike, I am right there for you. But here's the thing, my guy. So I'm like I'm a political junkie, okay? Like, I've been paying attention to this stuff a lot for a long time. And, you will never see me on this live stream disparaging other voters, like saying MAGA people are stupid, or people that vote for Republicans are a bunch of fascists, shit like that. But I think it's inaccurate to say that, like, all politicians are the same. Both parties do this, like, really sketchy shit. Like, it really is. Like, one side is way worse than the other. I would love to make that case to you. You don't have to believe me, but I think that if you, like, did the research, you'd find that it's largely accurate what I'm telling you. Like this is Republican Party shit as opposed to Democratic Party shit. It's not to say the Democratic Party doesn't have its flaws, but this is not the kind of dirty pool that happens there,
Yeah, you could be right, and I'll let you go on that, and I think that what you said with making the ID free is actually genius, and if one of these geniuses who actually had power would maybe do this, we would probably all vote for him. But yeah, thanks. Appreciate the time, man. Take care.
All right, take care, Mike. Come back soon. Man, oh man. That was a great call. Yeah. I'm glad that Mike was here. That was nice. All right, Toronto says, should I wear left sock on my right foot and right sock on the left foot? Yeah, fuck the band. Don't let them tell you what to do. Okay, let's see here. John Abbott has pointed out that driver's licenses don't qualify under the SAVE Act. I did not have time to bring that up for Mike before he dipped out, John Abbott, but you are correct that it is not just as easy as getting a driver's license. There are other hurdles as well. Okay. User whole bunch of numbers says Dems are awful, but GOP is somehow worse. I disagree with that a little bit. I would say that Dems are okay. They're okay to great, depending on like what you're talking about. But yes, there's very little value in the current iteration of the Republican Party politicians. Tall Get to Quit says you can't do anything without ID, dude. There are lots of things that you can do without ID. So yeah. James Rush says you just want someone to talk to. That is inaccurate, James Rush. If anything, I prefer monologizing, and it was only because this guy seemed interesting that I let him on my live stream at all. Mikael says, were you at the No Kings protest? Yes, I was. Kim Buckman says, dude, voting is a right. That is 100% accurate. The Izzard of Waz says, I can take the bus without ID. That is also accurate. Beaverino says, I prefer eulogizing for tyrants. Oh, I'm all over that, man. Fucking pay me for that shit. Dana Point Life, Dems are imperfect. Trump and Republican Party are ignorant or cruel. Agree with that 100%. Kim Buckman says, not calling you dude, guy in chats. Oh, okay. Well, I don't think that's going to be a persuasive argument for Mike. Not to say that he doesn't give a shit about rights. I just think that's a little bit more of a heady and philosophical, ethereal kind of an argument. All right, everybody. If there are any questions that I was not able to answer on the live stream, or you want more information on some of the shit that I've already said, then please reach out to me. I want you to reach out to me. I am trying to be a resource for you guys to be more informed and more involved in politics. So if there are ways that I can do that for you, I want you to use me. I want you to use me and abuse me. Use me until you use me up. DMs are open. You can also email me through my website. You can also hit me at my Discord channel. The Discord is great because there's also a great community there. There's recommendations for books and podcasts, and for civic actions that you can take to try to help, and for nonprofit organizations that desperately need you to donate your time and your money. And it is only through us doing the work that we're going to get out of this. It is only through us doing the work that we'll be able to have a better country where we're not struggling and not worrying as much as we currently are. There are good politicians out there. There are good politicians in government, but they do not have the resources or the political power to do this themselves. So we have to help them. Help the good ones, and we can have a better country, guys. Okay, let's see here. Anything else? Regular streaming schedule is Monday through Friday, starting around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. Special thank you to my regular financial contributors, Muzz King, Pliff, Average Joe, It's the Rocketeer, Lauren, the Two Seans, D, Robert, Shannon, Carmine, and Patrick. And if you would like to be thanked at the end of the live stream as well, become a Twitch subscriber, become a TikTok superfan, or join the Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Be good to each other. Be good to yourselves. Self-care is part of the work. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. Oh, thank you. Someone named Kirsten said I'm looking cute. Well, I think you were looking cute when you left the house today. Talk to you later, everybody. Bye-bye.